On to the final hour of Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time. We thank you very much for being with us since 6 a.m. up to where we are now, and we're going up to 10 a.m. And even tomorrow, we'll be back doing exactly the same thing. And by the way, let's talk about tomorrow briefly, what we shall do tomorrow. Right. Tomorrow, we are going to have an X-Space on Fix the Nation, on TV, on broadcast. You see this whole thing of broadcast meets podcast, meets X-Space, meets everything? This is what we shall be doing tomorrow. How?
Right. Tutakuwa kila mahali, but primarily, so we will be on X. If you're familiar with X Spaces, it's a shika mic mic kwa ground.
Digital baraza.
Digital baraza, that's exactly it. So start a conversation. Of course, you can join in, listen in, speak if you have something to say. Of course, kuna njia ku raise mkono useme, actually, I have something to say. And we'll have that conversation ongoing. Of course, even the feedback from YouTube, from our Nation FM listeners, from TikTok, from Instagram, from Facebook will all be intertwined. But ideally, it's a digital baraza because we realized we have things to say and tunaweza kwa ground, fantastic, but sometimes not everyone can make it kwa ground. So tupatane X, but tupatane kila mahali pia.
Yeah. And the topic for tomorrow will be?
Oh, we are
Addis Yababa.
Addis Yababa. The final push.
Eric is very happy with himself. He came up with that one.
Yeah,
He was like,
props though. It's a really good play on words.
So, Addis Yababa.
Right, we've talked about it a little bit on the show, whether people were saying, hey, we should be patriotic and really be pushing, for him to take the seat. Others are saying absolutely not. It doesn't matter about that. What we need is somebody qualified, somebody, not that he's not, but somebody who holds the ideals that we would want to see in a leader. And it's more than just being somebody who has served in politics and leadership. Does it serve the interests of our current African population? So please, your views. I think this one is going to be, there's going to be a lot of vocal people on this. Do we know who some of the panelists are? Can we say, or should we just leave that till tomorrow?
Well, some of the panelists will be in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, tomorrow speaking to us, and we are hoping to speak to the candidate, to some government officials, and also bring in expert opinion on why is it that Kenya has been trying to have a candidate taking over the AU chairperson's position. This is the second time in as many elections that we're actually presenting a candidate. We've also taken candidates to WTO, to the UNCTAD. Dr. Muhisa Kitui served there and all. How does it serve Kenya? So what if we have a Kenyan sitting at the AU chairperson's commission, AU commission chairperson's position? Okay, so that will be the debate tomorrow. Anyway, what else are we following across the country today? Our news fix.
Right. We are talking about the fact that, according to at least CS Kipchumba Murkomen, CS for Interior, there's a report that's being launched today on the status of drugs and substance abuse in universities in Kenya. The report compiled by the National Authority for the Campaign Against Drugs and Alcohol Abuse, that's NACADA, and it's titled Drug Trends in Universities, Shocking or Expected. I don't know why that's Nikama headline some media house I won't mention here, but of course we're looking behind the books, seeing what's really happening as far as the trends for drug and substance abuse. We always have those big signs outside universities, outside public offices. This is a drug-free zone. This is a corruption-free zone. Is that the case? Of course, I know there's a trend, especially amongst younger people. Alcohol consumption is reducing, but other drug use is increasing. So what does that mean for our long-term health? What does that mean for our economy? What does that mean for the millions of young people who are entering universities? And who is facilitating all of this? Because drugs are expensive. I think those are some good questions to ask.
Good questions to ask on the fight against drugs and also on cyberbullying, something that is, it's affecting so many people. I'd like to mention that we have with us in studio Cherie, Oyier, Programs Officer, Women's Digital Rights at KICTANET. We're saying that right? Fighting cyberbullying and defamation. Something that I think most people listening or watching this have either experienced or know somebody who has. So what happens if you're triggered, traumatized, bullied? If defamation is something that you go through, what rights do you have? Who do you report to? Do we see any follow through with those cases? Because I think if we see more successful cases being heard in court, then maybe people will be less bold to make certain statements. So we're really excited to have her in studio with us.
Wakili, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Karibu sana to Broadcast Meets Podcast. You feel the vibe?
I love it.
Great. Now you're going to love the next thing even more, which is a quotable quote by Good Girl Jano.
Yesterday I was Bad Girl Jano.
Yeah, today is Good Girl Jano. And Jano were my quotes. is going to give you a quotable quote, something that was said by someone.
I'm already sweating.
You're already sweating?
She literally started tapping her finger.
Good. So it's all about the words, though, more than the person who said them. But actually, you may actually know or guess the person who said them.
We try to make sure that we give enough hints because this isn't supposed to be an exam. It's just supposed to be a way to fellowship around the words that people have said before. So this person, think 1960s. Let's go there. Her eyes widened. For those who didn't see, think 1960s. Think, I feel like I'm going to make this easy. Think of somebody who in the 60s.
She's playing you.
She's playing me.
She's a lawyer.
Wakili knows how to play.
She's playing you.
She fought for the rights of an entire group. He fought for the rights of an entire group of people. So think 1960s, human rights activist, male. Injustice everywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Who said that?
Nelson Mandela?
He was also somebody who fought for the rights of people. Fair enough. Think the US, think America, 1960s civil rights movement.
Oh my God, I'm doing so badly. John F.
I have a dream.
Oh, Malcolm X.
Martin Luther King. You're the second person. You're the second person today who said Malcolm X.
It does sound like a Malcolm X quote, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it's just that their
They're both
politics
black.
were different.
Malcolm X, black.
And you know,
Martin
when Martin Luther was writing this, I think the reason why he sounded so enraged is because he was writing from jail.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're used to hearing and seeing how he was able to negotiate on the table and lead protests that actually led to change. But he was also subjected to the violence of the system. And so, yeah, it sounds very Malcolm X-ish, but it was Martin Luther King in the 60s.
I think about it. I've listened to all that. I love this show, by the way. I listened to all of them, and I could tell who it was, but I was I'm not going to get mine.
Oh, no,
All the others, when you're listening, you're like, I know that one.
When you don't know.
When you don't
It's like
know.
a song you know,
Yeah.
but now when it's time to sing, it's like, hey, where are the words? But on this cyber bullying angle, there's something that I found very interesting about Martin Luther King and his family. It's only in the late 2010s that the CIA stopped surveilling Martin Luther King and his family. So he, of course, passed on, but his family was still under surveillance. Long after the civil rights movement, quote unquote, ended. And it was so scary because I'm like, what do you mean your children and grandchildren are still being followed? Wakitweet, kuna mtu anaangalia. Wakisonga hapa, kuna mtu anaangalia. But their names have also come into question. Sometimes, you know, there's stories that were planted in the media as ways to kind of discredit them. And if it was a fairer time, they would have called that defamation, right? But it really wasn't. But I want to just begin by asking Wakili, what is defamation? It's a word we throw around a lot. It's used to threaten people a lot. What is defamation? How have I defamed you?
Okay, so defamation is, in information and communication, there's defamation, of course, there's disinformation, misinformation as well. But defamation is anything that is not true that also affects your reputation. So it might be something that is not true, but really doesn't affect your reputation. And usually what happens is when you go to court, usually the standard is, does it, in the eyes of a reasonable man, would you still be considered having been defamed, you know? So if, according to a reasonable man, that would, maybe it's jest, for instance, then it's not defamation. It has to hurt your reputation to some extent. Yeah.
Nikki Sama,
let me be the reasonable man.
Okay.
Defame.
Cherie ni mwizi.
Yeah.
Is that defamatory?
That is defamatory because it would affect me, my reputation. People would not want to do business with me. People would not want to associate with me. You know, I would be ostracized from some communities. So that is defamation.
That's assuming you're not actually a thief.
Exactly. And the defense,
even when you are, you can stand your ground in court and say, no, absolutely not.
But actually, the only one of the greatest defenses is truth. If I can prove that you actually are a thief, then there's no problem in that. Yes. Yeah.
So defamation and cyberbullying go hand in hand a lot.
Yes, kind of.
Right? Tell us about that link.
Okay. So defamation, of course, is that untrue information, and it hurts your reputation. But cyberbullying is a bit. I think I want to widen that conversation, because you have a lot of harms that are happening on online platforms. We have looked at it for a very long time at KICTANET, where I work, and I would classify cyberbullying falling under what we call now technology-facilitated gender-based violence, or online violence. So as technology came up with very good intentions, let's have communities, or let's connect on these platforms. Unfortunately, what was happening on offline platforms then transferred onto online platforms. So cyberbullying, of course, it's just bullying on online platforms. But if you're looking at technology-facilitated gender-based violence, cyberbullying falls under it. There's trolling, there's body shaming, there's the non-consensual sharing of intimate images, there's the doxing. Doxing is where kusalamiana, for example. So all of them kind of have a bullying effect, because as you can see, it has those connotations of bullying, what you'd experience on offline platforms. So, I mean, for us, we have the evidence from research. It's evidence-based. And then, of course, now we have other things that you're doing in order to combat TFGBV generally. And, of course, cyberbullying falls under that.
Was the president cyberbullied when he was? And if he was,
yeah.
He's the president.
Yes. What redress does he have?
What kind of, example.
I'm going to go to the legal, on the legal aspect, and what the African Court of Justice for Human Rights has declared, and the position that it has taken, and which has cascaded into the regional and national courts as well. So for public figures, the African Court of Human Rights has stated that they have to have a bit of a thicker skin. They are in that public eye. So definitely people have opinions about them, and they cannot purport to every time you're jumping and going to court, So for that in that regard, therefore, there's really no defamation, because people have a right to picket, people have a right to question and criticize, and also you have to distinguish between what is it called, jokes. You remember when we used to have like that cartoonish program,
the caricatures.
Yes.
XYZ.
XYZ.
Right.
And also before even internet, we used to have, we still have them, the column where it's
editorial cartoon.
Yes, cartoons. And sometimes I think for XYZ, as a nation, sometimes we'll collectively hold our breaths when certain shows aired. And there's nothing that happened to the people who did that, because those ones have been categorically been exempted from the broad defamation. So that is, if you say it's satire, that is it's a defense. If you say it is just opinion, it's also it also falls under a defense. So I don't think, in my opinion, gathering from all that, the president was not defamed. Yes.
So what? We're saying that's fair comment?
That's fair comment.
Even when we post images of the president in a coffin, AI-generated images of the president, comment that we're saying he should have thick skin? I think even if you look at, I think we are going ahead and looking at it from like, oh my God, this is happening. But remember, as I've given that history of XYZ, also in those instances, there are those ones that we like, oh my God, but there's really nothing that happened. And I mean, it didn't happen. Doesn't mean was it legal?
For what to happen?
For those XYZ caricatures, all episodes. It's okay, you can create this image of this person and put a turban on him, and we think who he is.
Yes.
Or put a crown on him and we can see who he is. Or valisha kofia, but it's the content though.
But kutakia mtu vibaya, is that a crime?
Whoa, Mariam.
No, I'm genuine.
No, it's
let's
a fair.
ask the question because that is this essentially what was happening there.
Yeah.
Is that a crime?
And they can stand in court and say this is
Yes.
satire. This is
For criminal. So for criminal. So let's also distinguish between criminal defamation and civil defamation.
Okay.
So for a long time we had criminal defamation in our laws, and it was of course scraped off because of how courts and just genuinely defamation should not attract a criminal penalty. Why? Because then, even if you look at now, let's say the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act that we have now, when you're talking about online platforms, Section 22 and 23 provide for issues of defamation and all that and disinformation. But what you're seeing is that most of the times who are using it mostly are politicians to silence dissenting voices. So what the court saw was that we can have other remedies for you when you're defamed. So you can ask for compensation, you can get compensation. But having it in our statutes that you could actually be arrested and charged and taken to prison, then it would be misused. And what has even happened with Section 22 and 23, we are still in court, Beck is still in court. Is still in court arguing that these sections are too broad and they're being abused and by politicians and people who have that power.
Is this the Computer Misuse?
The Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act.
Yes.
That is Section 23 and 24.
Yeah.
They're very broadly worded and they can be used to, they can be abused. So that is why we're in court. So criminal defamation is not
A thing.
Right. But with the way those sections are structured, they can actually be used. You've seen a lot of bloggers being arrested. It is really on those sections purely. So that's why we're saying remove those sections and see how we can, because actually there are people who are actually suffering. We're talking about cyberbullying and TFGBV generally, which I want to also be very categorical that TFGBV affects men and women, affects both men and women. But women are disproportionately affected. So as KICTANET, we've done research. You've seen that in our research last year, we saw that around 59% of women respondents had experienced TFGBV versus around 39%. So what is on the offline platform is what we're seeing on the online platform. That disparity is still across the board.
Yeah.
Yes.
What justice can be served to somebody who's gone through cyberbullying? You've just mentioned, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act of 2018.
Yeah.
So speak to us about, this is somebody who's going through online GBV, bullying, trolling. What are the steps that this person can take if they feel like, no, I'm not going to take this. I want to stand for my rights and I want this person or these people to know that they cannot do this to me. And even as you do that, maybe you can cite an example without obviously giving names of when there was a successful case.
Yeah. So I'll speak heavily on what the work that we've done at KICTANET. We are empowering both men and women and even any other marginalized communities who are using online platforms. Our intention is to have a safe online space because we know that cyberbullying and all other forms of TFGB, what it does, it has a chilling effect. I usually ask a lot of people when I'm doing capacity building, do you have an X account? They say yes. When was the last time you posted on it? They say, I don't. And I ask why. And it's just because of that backlash that you get when just a simple opinion could actually be really looked at in a different way, and you could end up the subject of the entire day or the entire week if you're not lucky that someone else is now being trolled. So the work that we've done, we are empowering people on how to use those social media platforms. We saw that simple things like using the reporting mechanisms that are already embedded in those platforms, people do not know about them. So we start from there. We tell you, you can actually block these people. You can actually filter what content you want to see so that you're not being exposed to things that you do not want to see. Other than that, also, we also teach them on how to report now to the different mechanisms. Unfortunately, the laws on TFGBV that would cover TFGBV are so fragmented. So other than the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, we still have the Data Protection Act that would lead on to privacy if you, let's say, there was non-consensual sharing of intimate images or there was an unauthorized access into your into your phone, and pictures or videos were taken and then exposed. So again, the penal code as well could still be stretched. I mean, we need to also see how we amend and review that law, because it's a very old law, does not really address issues of TFTBV, but we could stretch it. We still have laws like which other laws? The KICA Act. Still, so most of the people who come to us or people who we train, really, it's very difficult to narrow down on what law, where to go to. But what you have is, at KICTANET, you have a Tatua, a community called Tatua, where we teach on cyber hygiene. How do you use cyber digital platforms safely, and then how do you report? So other than the reporting mechanisms that are embedded, you can also go to the ODPC, that is the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, if there's issues of privacy and data protection that are involved. You can still also go to the police stations. So again, also what we've also seen is that as much as we might be training these people, the judicial system also has to be trained. So right now we have a project where we are training police officers in Busia and in Mandera, but we've also done in Nairobi as well. We're also tracking issues of TFTBV on online platforms. We want to have evidence that says X amount of TFTBV is happening on a daily basis or on a monthly basis, so that we are able to, I mean, most of the times statistics is one thing, but also getting the stories of these people also is very important. You asked about the experiences of the people that you've worked with. We've worked with very many women who have experienced TFTBV, from public figures, politicians, journalists, people who are on online platforms. Now we know that we have human rights defenders who are just people who are existing on online platforms and giving their opinions and shaping conversations. So we also have trained them. And what we usually see is that most people may have even experienced that TFTBV like 5 years ago, but the heart that they experience is still very, very fresh. So we also are doing a documentary just to tell their stories, so that we are also aligning the numbers together with these stories to also to make impact. Again, we cannot do this on our own. We also have to change the laws. So that is also very important, that the laws, as fragmented as they are, we want to have laws that specifically speak on TFTBV, cyber harassment and bullying, so that someone can go to court and actually get redress. But also just on that, when you go to court, if it's a criminal offense, you can only get that person given a fine or a prison sentence. What you're pushing for is to have them also get compensation if they go on a criminal basis, and also get psychosocial support when they go to court.
Let me interject here and just seek to understand some terminology that you're using.
Yes.
TFGBV.
Yes.
And your organization, KICTANET.
Yes. Yes.
So let's start with TFGBV.
Okay.
What is TFGBV?
TFGBV is gender violence. Yes. So.
And what's that?
So TFGBV is, as we say, technology facilitated gender-based violence. This is violence that is meted out to any person by the means of technology. So it can actually be, it can start on an online platform. It can be exacerbated by an online platform. So it could start offline and then transferred into yeah. So yes, exactly. So basically that's what TFTBV means, and it encompasses a lot of these offenses that have been talking about. And then KICTANET. KICTANET is Kenya ICT Action Network. We are an ICT policy think tank. We pride ourselves as we are catalysts of ICT policy in Kenya and in Africa. So what we do is we have 4 work pillars, that is capacity building, multi-stakeholder engagement, what am I forgetting? Multi-stakeholder engagement, policy advocacy, and research.
We get the gist of it.
Yes.
How long have you been in operation?
We've been in operation, so maybe I give some context to KICTANET. KICTANET started off as a mailing list where we just had had people who were interested in issues ICT coming together and giving opinions and shaping policy. And then now it now became an organization that it is today. So KICTANET has been in existence since almost 2007, where it just was a mailing list, and then it became all this organization that is advocating for policy issues on ICT. Yes.
So, because all these things you do, and then you say you also help to advocate and to raise issues and to create awareness and then to support.
Yes.
The support bit is a big one, and that's why we invited you here, so we can just get to understand when someone feels that they, their rights have been violated online. What do they do? Where do they go? You've taken time to explain that, to take us through what do they do, where do they go, what do they get? I mean, what are their rights? What are my rights? If I say, okay, I have gone through TFGBV, and this is how I felt that, and maybe the court agrees with me, what do I get?
So if you are to go to court and court actually agrees that you have been harmed online, then if you were to go to the criminal way, then of course that person is given a sentence or a fine is slapped on them. But also one of the things that you're seeing under the penal code that is not being used as much is that the penal code actually allows for compensation. There's a section, I can't just remember which exact section, that allows that the courts, when it's a criminal offense, you can actually get compensation. This is not being used as much, and that's what we're saying. Also, we've done some research that is going to come out soon that is saying use this also in the meantime as we sort this out, right? But if you're going to, for instance, in the data protection way, it's a privacy issue. Your device maybe was accessed, there was unauthorized access and extraction of your personal data. It could be image, it could be text, for instance. And usually most of the time harassment and bullying is usually by people who know you. So probably they have that access to you. So what would happen is that the ODPC would would give you compensation, and then also there's also the issue of if you're going through civil defamation, there could also be the option of retracting an apology. We see a lot of orders for retraction and apology for those harms as well.
I think the reason why it's such a full-time thing is we've seen it affect people's lives completely.
Exactly.
And I like how you started by saying it affects both men and women. But a lot of the time, especially women who are vying for political office globally. I mean, we've seen instances in, I think it was either Finland or Scotland, where somebody has to literally just deactivate. And it's a different kind of trolling and abuse from perhaps what a male member of parliament would deal with. Not that they don't. I think for women, it gets very personal, right? I think that's where the issue is. And so I'm just wondering, because I feel like this conversation has been going on for a few years. I'm trying to find hope in any wins. I don't know that I've heard as many examples of this person was able to successfully,
sue for defamation, or
because I feel like as long as that doesn't happen, people will just be emboldened. And sometimes it's so well organized, and you wake up to 300 insults, so it's like an army. Right, and some people always say you need a counter army or something, but I don't know. Is there anything that's changing or improving that can make somebody listening to this who is currently going through cyberbullying feel like these platforms are going to kind of create tools that are going to protect me? Has there been any breakthrough? Because it feels like this conversation has gone on for a few years. I think when you're talking about the tools on the platforms, very, very necessary conversation. I think when you compare what is happening in Africa, let's come to Kenya, because that's where we have the experience. When you look at what is the situation in Africa and Kenya generally, and then compared to maybe the European countries, you see that there's usually more, there's faster, what is it called? Faster action when these issues are raised, especially when it blows up. So maybe there's some poster pull down and all that. But what we've seen is that most of the times in African countries, the standards are different. First of all, because these platforms are not ours, right? Second of all, that is very important, is that what we've seen is that most of these insults happen in local languages. So we have content moderators, but they are trained to actually, from a Western point of view, not from a
local point of view. And even the work that they're doing is more skewed towards the Western. So most of the times when you're looking at maybe filter words, you know there's some things you can't say on TikTok.
Right.
It will be brought down. Why is that? Because they're content moderators, and there's also the algorithm that has already been set up to find those words and remove them. So
But the minute you switch to Kiswahili,
exactly,
all good.
right?
Yeah.
So what we've done as KICTANET, we've seen this is something that we are also learning. Remember, these are things that are very new. So as we go along, we learn, oh, this is happening, and it's because of this. So we identified that local languages being used to perpetuate these abuses, and especially when it's politically charged. Most people, we are like South Africans, where we start the conversation in English. And then
the actual just has to be in Zulu, Kikuyu,
So I used to think actually that was a South African thing until we started doing the work that you're doing. So we've created we are creating lexicons in 5 languages: Kiswahili, Luya, Kikuyu, Luo, and the two sub tribes of Luya. So they're gonna be 5, and Somali as well. So when we do that, it's now going to be possible to actually train the algorithms, because you're going to approach the social media platforms and tell them these are the words that are being used, and to mask. So use this and train your content moderators so that they can actually flag this, and also use them to train your algorithms so that they can actually use them to flag them.
That's
so
smart.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that you're doing. But of course, we still have a lot more languages that you need to also cover.
And not just the languages.
Yeah.
For me, there's also now a danger in the direction that the world is heading in general, because we had so many filters put in place. And I don't just mean like actual word filters. I mean so many checks and balances put on social media to ensure there's nothing hateful going through, at least not in English, that the algorithm understands. But now we're seeing rollbacks, whether it's Meta removing certain checks and balances, the fact checking, whether it's Elon Musk removing the need for like verified accounts to have to pay, or to be able to pay for a verified account. That means I can't know if it's Janet Mbugua, the journalist, or someone called Janet Mbugua who has $10 a month to spare, right? So what does that mean now overall for safety online for everybody? Right now that we're seeing kind of a rollback, and the system is more lax and more lax and more lax.
And then they throw in deep fakes in there.
Right.
Exactly. So very concerning for us even. I mean, the issue of Meta pulling out the fact checkers, it is right now it applies to the United States, but we have to be alive to the fact that the geopolitical it could apply to other countries,
it will spread.
It will spread, and if that is what is it's happening there, it will definitely spread to this other side. So again, what Elon Musk is doing, I mean, what Meta is doing is now introducing community notes that were on X, but you know very well that those do not really work, because I mean, it is only, I can't dedicate my life to fact check everything if that's not my job, So it's a concern for us, and I think some of the things that we're still also doing, some of this, because it's a global issue. We have to go as a block. So again, there are things like when you do reports on digital rights as a country, we have right now we have the universal periodic review of different laws, and people are discussing this in Geneva next week. One of the things that is going to come up is those issues of how are we going to, as a global community, push for this. But of course, even the issue of the check mark on X, very concerning, because most of the times we are all and other than NTV, most people are consuming their news from X and the social media platforms, and
simultaneously. You watch TV, you go on X, you go on TikTok.
And I think now, because of the different platforms, you can only, there could be an NTV that is fake, if it has the check mark. So it's very difficult to verify these things. We need to have serious fact checking and serious, like, remove those the kind of procedures that are being put to allow for people who are not real, to run those accounts.
Cherie, offline, how do you fact check? If I called you today, somebody called you and they introduced themselves as Eric Lati.
Yes.
Right? and they're inviting you for an interview on NTV tomorrow, how would you know that that is Eric Latif who's calling?
Very simple. I'll send you one bob on M-Pesa.
Really?
Yeah, like that's what people. That's
No, it's
when someone just calls you. I mean, you're not going to be having one bobs.
I know someone gave out my number.
Right?
No, we don't. You don't send. You don't go to the.
There's something that will trigger you to ask yourself whether this is the right person.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you will then start having a balance of. Is this likely to be real or is this not likely to be?
Yeah.
So you have your guard up. That's why you're even sending that one bob. Sindio?
Yes.
So why do we not have our guards up when we are consuming, when we are online?
I think
because I have my guard up when somebody just comes to me and says, "Hey Eric, how are you doing? We met in 9." I'm like, okay. Does my memory remember this person? Does if somebody calls me, there's something. Even if it's somebody that you know and you can tell this is Eric on the other end of the line, but Eric is telling you something, you'll be like, this doesn't add up with what I know.
Yeah.
About Eric.
Yeah. So if offline, we have our internal intrinsic system of fact-checking, of information verification, and I even say in villages, people know if you've heard a rumor from so-and-so, if you've heard it from so-and-so, it's likely to be true. We have a system that you develop.
I think
how can't you develop that system
you're
online?
Assuming
How
that
can we
everyone is equal.
Everyone is not equal, but everyone has an intrinsic, has an internal mechanism of guarding themselves.
I think my point is that all of us, we cannot assume that everyone has the same perceptions of like they're gonna be conned or anything like that, right? So we have to still put the law has to work for. I mean, regulations and laws have to work for all of us, regardless of how much my guard is up and the other person's guard is low. So that is basically why we're saying for the person who is like Eric, whose guard is up and is very aware of these issues, let the law work for him. And the person who's just in the outside, even just outside here on the street, who could just be called. How many people have you had have been called and they've sent lots of money because they just believe that they've been called and told, put in this star hash, whatever, and they go ahead with it. So we are also protecting everyone regardless of whether, where their guard is.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. I completely agree. The law comes, at that final end at enforcement. Yeah. But how do we increase the guard of everybody?
Yes,
at all times?
Definitely.
Yesterday there was a story on the papers that we didn't get to read of somebody who's well-educated, well-exposed, trained in Harvard, got conned by someone in committee.
7.6.
It was 7.6 million shillings. Ilienda hivyo. Hakutana mtu alikuwa tuma pesa. Nimeshikwa, tuma pesa.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And we all look back and you're like, but everybody is actually susceptible to being conned like that. Yeah. So how do we go to our communities and just rewire ourselves to raise our guard?
Yeah.
So that it doesn't matter whether it's an X, someone bought an X, or this system had a way of verifying that this X, I'm going to give you the X. But even if you don't have an X, I have a guard up.
Okay. I think now I get where you're coming from.
You get where I'm going.
Yes. I think maybe let's step back into when we started using social media platforms and technology. I mean, we're not the very beginning, but for me, for instance, I was introduced to social media platforms through Facebook. And at that time, we were posting everything. You would know I am at NTV right now, and I'm going to live here, and I'm going to go there, and so we posted all our lives.
Cherie super. The good old days.
I know, right? So we really had no sense of fear or privacy. We really didn't understand it. And I think that is some of the things that we're also grappling with even right now when you're training, because everyone's just like, okay, and so what if they have my X details, my X nowadays cannot just be like, it's no longer just a symbol for, anyway, I didn't mean the platform. Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they have this so much details about me, So we are reeling people back in to tell them your data has value, this and this has value, and then there's also this harms. So what we are doing is digital literacy. That is something that is also is lacking, very limited, and there's disparity in urban versus the rural areas. In the urban areas, we're seeing most people they're a bit aware, but in some sections of the rural areas, people really are still living in that. We also, again, it's such a community-based, as Africans, we're community-based and we're sharing everything. So for us at the Tatua Center, we teach people how to be digitally resilient and how to practice cyber hygiene in terms of what can you post, what shouldn't you post. When you have a problem, when there's a harm that is being meted on you, how do you report on these things, And of course, most of the times, the people that you've trained are people who are in the public eye. But also now we're seeing, especially during the finance bill protests, we saw a lot of regular citizens who use their platforms for just to express themselves being targeted. So we're also reeling in these people at the Tatua Center to ensure that they're empowered.
I want to go into that.
Yes.
Like basics. Give us like good cyber hygiene basics.
Yes. Okay. So good cyber hygiene basics, I think. If you're living here, of course, everyone knows that you are here right now because it's a live show, but you can't give us step by step.
Hi guys,
Yeah.
this is my home.
So,
House 123 on Kijiji Road.
Yes,
And,
you see people doing that. Yeah, so don't share your data, especially where you live. I think some of the things also, maybe when you go to even children, details about your children, I think that is something that we're struggling with a lot. And that's a whole entire conversation because of how people perceive and people consume content that has children in it. It sells more.
It's a bit scary.
Yes, yeah. So don't share your details. In the event that happens, or even if you're on X, for instance, and you are being bullied, those dots at the top, you can top them, you can block, you can filter. So use those the embedded mechanisms that are inside there. I mean, there are so many things that you can actually do just to protect yourself. When I think, and people also coming alive to the fact that people are actually making money from these platforms. So you need to vlog, but don't do it in real time, at least. Yeah.
That's affected people.
Yeah.
You are referring to sharenting. I think that's what it's called.
Yes, sharenting.
Overshare
Yes.
your kids.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is people now say you need to ask for their consent.
Exactly.
For example, for my two kids, my older one doesn't like being profiled or posted.
Yeah.
And so people are like, hey, you can't tell us. It's like, no, they're a person who can say to you, I don't want to be. Yeah. Is there a number? I know that sounds like a very big question, but sometimes people don't know what to do. Is it KICTANET that you log on and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this cyberbullying. What do I do? If somebody's feeling super helpless right now, what's the first step they can take? Who's the first platform they can report to?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're going through cyber harassment or any form of TFTBV, you can always come to KICTANET. Our website is there. You can you can onboard on that platform as well. We have a mailing list that we can also just put you on board and then follow up. At Tatua Center, when you look at KICTANET and also search for Tatua Center online, you can actually get you actually get help from that. Is
there
platform.
A national helpline or platform?
There's definitely a national helpline. I just cannot remember the number right now, but there's a national helpline that is available. But also what you're also seeing is that because a national helpline is also sometimes but it's too many people may be calling at the same time, and there's issues of maybe people are not picking up. We also want to disseminate this into the counties, put them into counties. So in Mandera and Busia, we're also going to be training police to have a help desk. And of course, this is piloting. Once we're done with Busia and Mandera, we'll also see how to expand it to other counties as well. So that counties also the training. I think what the gap that we've seen is that the police are unaware of these issues. They're new. I mean, the lawyers as well, prosecutors, judges and magistrates. So we need to also bring them up. So to do this, we've seen like curriculums have not changed in a long time, right? So one of the researches that we're also going to be launching very soon is how to incorporate TFTPV studies into law and media, because again, media is where most people, so how do you understand TFTPV so that you don't perpetuate them when you're doing your work here? Yes.
Cyberbullying, defamation, things we are continuously talking about. Sometimes it feels something like very foreign, very, removed. Sometimes you may not be sure, have I been defamed, have I not?
Yes.
Is this a bully, is this not?
Yeah.
What are the telltale signs so that I can be able to take action, whether it's a block or a lawsuit, anything in between, right? Yeah.
So if it's abusive, if it is abusive, you cannot tell me that now I have posted something. It could be something very simple. Let's say, and I don't know if I should do it, but you guys talked about it the other day, Murugi's post, and how you cannot tell me that now 100 people, 1,000 people are on my case. That is already bullying, because now I cannot even come on online platforms.
Buzzing.
Yeah, and I think most of the times what we've seen is that the reason why these issues have not been taken seriously is because there's no physical manifestation. I mean, on the face of it, there's no physical manifestation, but there's a psychological manifestation, and sometimes it could be physical because the perpetrator of online could actually find you online, but also it could be physical because of the harm that you do to yourself, because of the pain you're going through. So I mean,
if it's abusive,
if it's abusive,
anxious or
all those things,
disrespected, etc.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. For defamation, I think that's the one that maybe because bullying is you'll feel that this person is coming for me for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Defamation, when we say to a reasonable person, would this have changed my opinion about you? Who is this reasonable person in this case? Is it a court? How do I know I've been defamed? It's a very...
I think if you stand to lose something...
Yes.
Okay. I know that's also... I'm also trying to think about what Mariam is saying, but I think defamation is, you've accused me of something that's not true. That could affect my pocket, could affect my safety.
Yeah.
I think that's when it's... defamation. That's defamatory. You've said something.
But is it about safety, pocket, or is it about reputation?
It's also reputation. Actually, reputation, all kind of intertwined, because reputation also affects pocket safety.
It does.
Okay. So if I say, like, when I was like, Cherie ni mwizi, to a reasonable person, does that sound true? It's very subjective as well, right? But then the proof of burden is for me to prove that you are a thief.
Actually, she's a thief.
Right.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
From the regulator is the communication authority, is it?
Yes.
From the communication authority's work and perspective, what do they do to the best of your knowledge? I'm sure KICTANET works in collaboration with the CA. What do they do? Because they're taxpayer funded to A, increase awareness, and B, offer support for those that may feel that they are being trolled, bullied, attacked, and they're likely to suffer, or they already are suffering. TF?
GP.
It was TF, right?
Yes.
TF.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think for CA, they've done some amazing work in terms of capacity building. They have courses on the platform.
On which platform?
On their website. So they have a course for children that protects them, because I think some of the things that we've also seen is that TFT, online violence is really affecting children because they are digital
natives.
Natives, So it was very important that they also are trained on how to do this. And I think also they have a training for, I think the kind of information that they provide on those platforms as well in terms of what to do. I think they have those kind of information on that platform as well, on their website, I mean. So I know for sure that they have the course for children. It's animated, it's very simple, so that children can understand. And I think shamefully even adults, because it's the same principles. If you look at it, it's the same principles, and I think adults would actually benefit from it, because we are the ones who are parenting children, And we are
the ones who are learning.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
We're actually learning the technology.
Yes.
More than the children are just getting into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Should this spread to schools, to education? I know you talked about curriculum and all. Has there been a conversation that says, how do we tailor this information so that it gets into curriculum, so that children are taught as they are growing up, because these children are digital native, because we are working at creating a cyber highway that makes sure that there is internet at school, that then they're also learning about safety.
Yeah. So I think digital literacy is very important from a very young age. Unfortunately, when we did our review on curriculums, and for us, we started off with the universities, we saw that curriculums have not changed. I did law a long time ago, not to reveal my age, but basically the same notes that I used those many years ago are the ones that are still being used now. And of course, things have really changed, right? So I think for us, we started off at the university, but also for instance, we have a flagship program that is the internet governance related, that also incorporates children as well. We do it with a partner called Watoto News, which the focus is on children. So teaching children on how to use the internet safely and how to actually also use it for their empowerment for different reasons. So it's very important that we spread this to now the school, so that it's not just a few children who we can access during this program.
Yeah. This conversation could span another, it needs a workshop
or just several continuous conversations.
I think so.
Just keep having them, and things emerge, we respond to them and all.
Because it evolves so quickly. But thank you, Cherie, for just sharing those insights. I think they're always really helpful. People can find this online as well, this interview we've had, and just kind of bookmark what are the things that they need to look into. So thank you so much for being with us today. We are about to hand over to your world, but before then, we have hugs to talk about. Loads of hugs. Nairobi Hug Fest. One man, 15,000 free hugs for 24 hours. That's going to be at Hilton Park on Valentine's Day tomorrow, the 14th of February. You can see the poster on your screen. So, wow.
Actually, what's this? What's going on here?
What's going on? He wants to break a world record. Again, this is world records, to have 15,000 free hugs in 24 hours. He's going to start really early tomorrow. We're hoping to be able to check in with him, even if he's mid-hug, and speak to those in the line who are going to. Cherie, are you a hugger?
I am.
You are, but you're not sure if you will.
So you basically go to the Hilton Park tomorrow, opposite Archives, and you'll find him there. Just hug. We're trying to break into the Guinness Book of World Records, right? And just making sure that a Kenyan hugged the most people. 15,000 free hugs in 24 hours. 15,000. How did you find a hug?
I think I've spoken to him before. It has to be, so the hands have to touch at the back, except in a situation where maybe someone is too big and they can't go around, that's okay. But ideally, hands have to touch at the back. What else was the other criteria? There's a few seconds. It has to be a few seconds. So it can't just be like, boop, boop. That's it.
It's got to last a certain duration.
Yes, a certain duration. A few seconds. I can't remember the exact number, but a few seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this will be happening tomorrow. We'll speak to this to him, at some point tomorrow and see, hey, so how far have you gone? And how are you doing? And the people who are coming in, why are they here?
Why are you there for a hug? It says to save lives and just kind of, just a dopamine release. I know we're about to shortly cross over to your world with Winnie Lubembe and Wikali Mary to talk about styling and the evolution of fashion, but before we go, we were still honoring Leonard Mambo-Potela.
That's right. We're about to Valentine's
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's splash. Tell us what's happening.
Kuna splash gonna happen at the Hilton Park Hotel. That's where the former Hilton Hotel used to be. So any Twapo Hilton, you know exactly where I'm talking about. And it's the Valentine's Splash 2025, a celebration of love and connection. It's a place for you to come and, of course, celebrate love with your family, with your friends, with a couple. And it's open for all, so please just make your way to the Hilton Hotel. And of course, it will be a vibrant, love-filled space where brands connect with a diverse and engaged audience. So there's a couple of partners that have already signed up, but if you want any more details, you can email valentinessplash@ke.nationmedia.com. But 13th and 14th, yani leo na kesho, at the Hilton Hotel. It's free for all. Just come, have a good time, see what's on offer, celebrate love.
And Nation has you covered for Valentine's, is what we're saying. Between hugs and splashes and love, we're just spreading the love full time. I know we wouldn't go into what Valentine's plans are. It's usually a very personal question. But thank you so much for being with. Are we going to Mikali and coming back?
Yeah, speak to her.
Mikali, if you are there, Mikali, we'd love to hear about the evolution of fashion. I know that she's supposed to be hosting Olga Nato, who has brilliant clothes, by the way, and Grace Kariku, who's an image consultant. So, there is Mikali. She's nodding. She can hear me. Hey, Madam, elevate, Madam, your world. We see you. We see you.
Hey, Janet, I can hear you loud and clear. And I'm excited. As you can see, I'm already in my reds, ready for Valentine's Day. And today we're talking about fashion. So we'll be touching about the reds that we wear on Valentine's Day and what that means as well. So we are talking about styling and the evolution of fashion. We'll have Olga Nato in the building, and we have Grace, an image consultant, letting us know what is our etiquette like, you know? Are we showing up the way we need to be showing up? So it's such an amazing show lineup for you. And today, Trendy Thursday, we're making sure that you stay trendy and you also stay looking classy. All right? We're coming on your world, so do not go too far. We will be right back.
Oh,
love it. Ooh.
You look good in red, Mikali, by the way.
So good.
She actually does.
What is your love etiquette?
Sidebar.
Today is World Radio Day.
Yes.
And we
not yet the day for love.
We are looking back at radio and the evolution of radio and what radio has done to communities across the globe. It's still the preferred medium of choice for a majority of people globally. So radio is a big thing. And on this day, just a couple of days, on the 7th of February, last week on Friday, the great legend Leonard Mambo Motela passed on. And he will be buried tomorrow at Langata Cemetery. But today there will be the memorial service at the All Saints Cathedral from 2 p.m. Family, friends, fans will be gathering there just to celebrate this man. This is a man who had a show that was running for so long, Jehu Nyungwana. He worked in the Presidential Press Service. He was at KBC for all those years. And, he basically represented what radio was for very many people for very many years. He received very many awards as well and state commendations, head of state commendation and the Order of the Golden Warrior, OGW. Rest in peace, Leonard Mambo Motela. Let's take a look at some of the things that he did, right, as we end. Do have yourselves a lovely day. Enjoy World Radio Day from Eric Latif, Janet Bogwa, and Mariam Bishar. See you again tomorrow.
See you.
Jay.
Hai kiki astahilipo Mola mwenyewe kilinguruma likoni kikatiririka wale pasenja wakapwelea baharini tuliona vivyo kwa elini.